The prologue of The Way of Kings drops us into the main story of the Stormlight Archive with the perspective of a man with special powers in a world we don't yet understand, leaving us with a significant knowledge deficit. Today we will unarchive the key details of the prologue and part 1 of The Way of Kings. If you're wondering about the prelude to the Stormlight Archive, you'll need to have read further to understand anything deeper than the surface level details of the text. This video will only cover the Stormlight Archive through the end of the first part of The Way of Kings, the first book in the series. There's no other required reading, so let's get going. Let's start with the prologue, as it is both the first and by far the most complex chapter of this first part of the book. Szeth Sunsun Vallano is from Shinovar, a land far from the palace in which he is attending a feast. While Szeth is not partaking in the festivities, he has a purpose for being there: to kill. As a truthless, Szeth must obey his master's commands, and tonight those commands are to kill Gavilar, king of Alethkar. His current masters are the Parshendi, a group of people with black and red marbled skin who have entered into a peace treaty with the Alethi just before the night's feast. These Parshendi are similar to Parshmen, who serve as docile slaves around the world, but Parshendi is a name given by the Alethi, roughly meaning Parshmen who can think. Despite the treaty, they have directed Szeth to assassinate the Alethi king, and though this makes little sense to Szeth, he does not ask questions of his masters. Although it is late into the night, the palace is well lit with torches in some areas, but in others, sconces filled with gems glow brightly with stormlight held within, casting colored light onto the walls. Szeth approaches the guards in a hallway leading to where the king is, and when they stop him, he breathes in the stormlight from the gems in the lamps on the walls. With this energy within him, Szeth is able to manipulate the direction which his body feels is down, allowing him to fall toward the guards as if they were below him. The assassin is able to control this to a point where he can float or fall more slowly than he would naturally. He is also able to apply the same effect to other people or objects. By touching them with the stormlight, he can send them hurtling toward the ceiling with no natural gravity pull toward the ground. Szeth categorizes his abilities as lashings, though the terminology surrounding the different types of lashings is not particularly important to understanding this prologue. On top of these powers, Szeth has a shard blade, a weapon of significant power that is lighter than a sword of its size should be. A shard blade is summoned from mist, allowing the weapon to be concealed until the wielder decides to use it. The summoning process takes 10 heartbeats of the wielder, then it drops into their hand as if they were holding it the entire time. A blade can cut through inanimate objects with very little resistance and cut through flesh without breaking it. So, as we quickly see, if a person is cut by a shard blade, any extremity becomes dead, and if they are killed, their eyes burn. These weapons cut the soul of a person, spiritually severing limbs or ending lives instantly. After easily taking care of the king's guards with his powers and weapon, Szeth finds a group fleeing with what looks to be the king, but Szeth notices a new figure, one in shard plate, the blade's complement. This armor is made of a material that can stop shard blades, though it will crack after repeated blows from a shard blade. The armor enhances the person wearing it with strength and speed. When in good condition, plate has no gaps like normal metal armor would have, only a small eye slit for the warrior to see through. An additional benefit is that Szeth's lashings will not function on someone wearing shard plate, but Szeth is certain that none of these men have ever had a moment to take that advantage until now. Szeth has never left anyone alive that had seen his lashing abilities. The man in plate is a full shard bearer with both plate and blade, making him a very dangerous opponent, and so while Szeth is bound by his honor to not give in, he somewhat hopes the shard bearer will defeat him and put an end to his personal suffering. The two men duel and dance for a time, as the shard bearer attempts to stall Szeth as the king gets away. Szeth believes he stunned the man at one point and dashes after the king's escape party, but when the shard bearer doesn't follow, Szeth realizes the Alethi used the decoy to lure him away, leaving the king safe in a suit of armor made to defend against shard blades. Szeth returns to assail the king in plate, and the fight this time is more desperate, with Szeth managing to shatter a piece of the plate around the torso. Finally, Szeth is able to shatter King Gavilar's helm, but Gavilar lands an enhanced punch to the assassin's face, tossing him onto a wooden balcony. When Gavilar approaches to follow the punch, Szeth lashes the balcony downward, which when combined with the weight of the shard bearer, crashes to the ground below. While Szeth is able to lash himself to the palace wall, King Gavilar falls to the ground and is impaled by a broken piece of balcony through the open section in his armor. Szeth goes to the dying king's side, who tells him that he expected an assassin to come for him, thinking that someone named Thydakar sent him. Szeth admits that he does not know who that is, informing Gavilar that his masters are the Parshendi the king intended to make peace with. In Gavilar's final moments, he hands Szeth a sphere with a strange light that is both completely dark yet glowing, saying, "They must not get it." The king's last words were to tell his brother that he must find the most important words a man can say. Szeth takes the sphere as Gavilar's shard blade appears from mist next to his body, proof that the king is dead. As people continue to raise the alarm in the palace, Szeth dips Gavilar's fingers in his own blood and writes his final words to his brother, as the Shin people hold dying requests as sacred. The assassin flees once the message is complete, leaving the priceless shard blade behind, noting his own blade is enough of a burden. It's clear that while Szeth is a capable swordsman, his additional abilities with lashings and stormlight make him a much more potent force, able to take down a full shard bearer despite not having shard plate of his own. Gavilar, even as a full shard bearer, had none of these powers, and was shocked several times by Szeth's movements using them. Szeth is also clearly damaged mentally, and at this point it is unclear what is meant by his punishment as a truthless. It is somehow related to him believing the Voidbringers are real, and he brings up the myths of these creatures several times internally throughout his quest to kill King Gavilar. Clearly there is more to uncover about Szeth, but unfortunately we will need to wait until the end of part 1 to see any more of him. Our introduction to part 1 is a chaotic battle from the perspective of a young soldier named Sen. This is 5 years after the events of the prologue, and the scene is a border skirmish on the edge of Brightlord Amram's land. Sen is a new spearman in Amram's army, only 15 years old. A veteran named Dalit tries to assure the boy that he will be fine, mostly because he is in Kaladin's Stormblessed squad, though Sen doesn't really believe him. Sen is terrified, sure he will die here, unprepared for battle with minimal training. Kaladin joins his men, and Sen is surprised to see the squad leader is only about 19 years old. Kaladin speaks with the veteran who was encouraging Sen, saying he paid to get the boy into his squad for some reason. They agree to watch over the boy, as he won't know how their squad communicates. Dalit reassures Sen one last time, saying most of the men in Amram's army don't have much training. The Alethi soldiers that do are off fighting for vengeance against the Parshendi at the Shattered Plains. When the battle starts, Kaladin leads the squad on a dead sprint to get out ahead of the enemy's volley of arrows. In the ensuing chaos, Sen is lost in the shuffle and stabbed in the leg by an enemy spearman. But before they can finish the boy off, Kaladin reaches Sen and fends off 6 spearmen all on his own. The squad leader turns and binds Sen's wound, as he has some field medicine experience. The rest of the squad joins to protect them, but they notice an enemy light-eyed officer. Commended soldiers can be promoted to the Shattered Plains, and Kaladin decides this is a good opportunity to distinguish the squad by killing the man. While Sen waits for runners to come take him from the battlefield thanks to Kaladin's bribes, the officer is quickly taken down. Sen finally agrees that the squad is different, and Dalit tells him it's mostly because of Kaladin. A moment later, a full shard bearer on an enormous horse breaks through Amram's lines. Sen admires the sword and armor, and as he gets lightheaded from the blood loss, he closes his eyes, not wanting to fight something so powerful. The next chapter is from Kaladin's perspective, and 8 months have passed since that battle. Kaladin has spent that time as a slave, passing between multiple slave traders' hands. We don't yet know how he became a slave, or the full outcome of the battle from Sen's chapter. At some point, after one of his many failed escape attempts, he is branded with a Shash brand, meaning dangerous. He is one of many slaves in cages in a caravan roaming through barren land called the Unclaimed Hills. His current owner is Tavlakov, a Thaylen man who looks to have fallen on hard times, turned to trading in flesh. Kaladin has lost most of the man he once was, a leader, soldier, surgeon, though he still has some fight in him. He keeps a leaf of dried blackbane, which would be poisonous if he put it in Tavlakov's drink, and at one point he shreds the map the slave trader was using to find their destination. A windspren pesters Kaladin along the way, eventually beginning to speak to Kaladin in the form of a young girl, attempting to encourage him and understand the world. Kaladin notes that it is odd that a spren is speaking to him at all, even for a windspren, which are said to be mischievous. The caravan eventually reaches the Shattered Plains, and Kaladin is finally sold into High Prince Sadeas's army. Kaladin hopes he can earn his way back into a spear squad, but is conscripted into the bridge crews instead, specifically Bridge 4, which has the highest casualty rate of all the bridge crews. The bridge crews are used to carry large, heavy bridges for Sadeas's army to cross the chasms of the Shattered Plains. The land here is cracked with canyons, creating large plateaus of rock. The army is unable to get across the chasms without some sort of bridge, and the bridge crews provide some agility to their assault on the Parshendi. This work is brutal and grueling, as the bridgemen have to run with the bridges on their shoulders to stay ahead of the army. Not only that, but once they reach their destination plateau, they have to run directly toward the waiting archers who try to stop them from placing their bridges. Many bridgemen die on assaults like this, and the surviving ones have to run the bridges back to the war camp, leading the army after the battle is over. On the way back from his first run, the Windspren tells Kaladin her name is Silfrena. The bridgemen themselves are downtrodden, and most have given up. Most of them don't speak at all. The bridge crews are also used for other labor around the war camp, and the bridge sergeant, a dark-eyed man with an eye patch named Gaz, directs the groups, though he does not assault the plateaus with the bridges. One night during a high storm, we see a flashback to Kaladin's youth, training as an apprentice to his father as a surgeon. In his hometown of Hearthstone, the people treat his family differently due to his father's occupation, which they find unnatural. Kaladin struggles with this, as well as his father's lesson that he should learn how much to care in the surgery room, as his nerves still control him at times. On top of that, young Kaladin is torn between wanting to be a soldier and following in his father's footsteps as a surgeon. This flashback occurred 9 years ago, roughly 3 years prior to King Gavilar's death, so there is a lot more to learn about Kaladin's path from surgeon's apprentice to squad leader in Amram's army to slave running bridges. After a few weeks of bridge runs, only one of the men in Bridge 4 when Kaladin arrived still lives. Kaladin heads to a chasm near the war camp called the Honor Chasm to commit suicide, remembering all of those he attempted to save but ultimately failed, including Sen and Dalit. Sil returns and gives Kaladin encouragement by bringing him a blackbane leaf, remembering the care he took with the poisonous leaf in the slave wagons. Not understanding why, this is enough to prevent Kaladin from stepping off the cliff. He returns to the Bridge 4 barracks and asks each of the men their names, determined to save each of them. While this is a very depressing viewpoint throughout Part 1, Kaladin has chosen to find a way to save Bridge 4 from their seemingly inevitable fate. Our other Part 1 point of view character, Shallan, arrives in Kharbranth on a ship after nearly 6 months of pursuing Jasnah Kholin. The king that Szeth assassinated in the prologue was Jasnah's father, and her brother now sits on the Alethi throne. Shallan is attempting to persuade Jasnah to take her as a ward, a position that would allow Shallan to be taught by one of the most renowned scholars on all of Roshar. The princess has traveled here, away from her family, because Kharbranth is home to the greatest library in the world, the Palanaeum, housed within the city-state's royal palace, the Conclave. With over 700,000 works stored, the Palanaeum is a unique location with so much information in one place. Jasnah is also a known atheist, making her a heretic in the eyes of most of the world, including people of her homeland, which has an official religion of Vorinism. Despite this, she possesses a powerful device called a Soulcaster, which allows the user to transform matter into different matter. These devices are revered as holy in most cultures, and Shallan believes that the church likely resents the fact that a heretic is in possession of one. In one of the first interactions between Shallan and Jasnah, Jasnah soulcasts a large block of rock into smoke to free the granddaughter of the king of Kharbranth, who was trapped behind the rock. Throughout her interactions with King Taravangian, Jasnah is poised and in control, with an air of power outmatching that of the king, though she remains respectful of the aging man. In opposition to Jasnah, Shallan is a very naive girl of a lesser, light-eyed family from a country called Yak Kaved, but she has extraordinary artistic skills. Shallan has not had formal training in many areas that Jasnah expects a candidate ward to have. Jasnah acknowledges Shallan may have artistic skill, but deems it less important than subjects like history or logic, areas where Shallan is particularly lacking. So Jasnah rejects Shallan outright, infuriating the young woman, but she refuses to give up because she desperately needs access to Jasnah to steal her Soulcaster. Shallan's father recently died, though it is not widely known, and her family now has debts coming due. It turns out Shallan's father was secretly in possession of a soulcaster and was using it to create large deposits of valuable marble to bolster the family finances. On the night her father died, the soulcaster was damaged, becoming unusable, leaving the family without the means to maintain the wealth they had been flaunting. Shallan learned all of this on the night that her father died, but thinking of those events makes her uncomfortable. Shallan's intention is to gain Jasnah's trust, swap the broken soulcaster for Jasnah's functional one, and return to her family to manufacture enough wealth to satisfy the debt collectors. A pretty bold plan for such a sheltered young woman. In the Palanaeum, Shallan writes a letter to Jasnah explaining why she should reconsider her petition to be the princess's ward. Kabsal, an ardent or servant of the Vorin religion, joins Shallan while she sketches. The man is one of the king's ardents, an occupation requiring one to give up all possessions and work for the religious betterment of the kingdom. Shallan deduces that Kabsal is trying to convert Jasnah to his devotary, which would be quite the feat given the woman is an atheist. Kabsal leaves Shallan, asking her to inform Jasnah he was trying to meet her. Shallan finishes her sketches and leaves the letter for the princess, but the woman finds Shallan in her alcove before she escapes. Jasnah initially says she has made up her mind, but takes a closer look at the contents on the table. The letter pushes Jasnah in the right direction, but not to full acceptance. She says she will take Shallan as her ward once she has remediated her lacking subjects of philosophy and history, which is Jasnah's chosen focus area. While this is a large victory to gain a wardship at all, Shallan doesn't have that kind of time, so she must find a way to become her ward now. So she goes to a local bookstore and purchases books on history and logic, hoping to impress Jasnah with a quick turnaround. She re-enters the Palanaeum to study, but before she can read her books, Jasnah finds her again. The princess finally admits Shallan as her ward after reviewing her artwork, the logic of her arguments, and persistence in pursuing scholarship of her own accord. Jasnah leaves the alcove, and Shallan is very relieved, though she knows the difficult part of stealing the soulcaster is still ahead of her. So what should you expect beyond Part 1? Each book of the Stormlight Archive includes interludes between parts. In most cases, these are 3 to 4 chapters with different point of view characters than the main parts, giving us insight into the rest of the world while our main story continues. These are not only important to the world building of Roshar, but they also often foreshadow major events later in the series, or give a soft introduction to a character who will be more important later. The first set of interludes between Part 1 and 2 includes Ishik of the Pure Lake, Nambalat, one of Shallan's brothers, and Szeth, the assassin in white. These 3 interludes combine to be shorter than many chapters of the book, and that trend continues for the rest of the Way of Kings. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the size of the book or the parts, I recommend you take a short break before the interludes. Then when you're ready to dive back in, these shorter chapters will help you reacclimate to the world of Roshar. Kaladin's story will continue in Part 2, but we leave Shallan's story behind until Part 3. There will be more flashbacks, which is a major aspect of the series, learning about the character's past in detail. Part 2 introduces some new characters located at the Shattered Plains. This means that we will learn some new perspectives on current events, new aspects of the world, and some details on the Alethi quest to avenge their murdered king. I will admit that Part 2 is where I got lost in understanding the context of these conflicts portrayed, but that's exactly why I created this channel, to help readers absorb this amazing world Sanderson has designed without spoilers for the rest of the books. If you're looking for more information on the world building in Part 1, the next video is what you're looking for. The 3 videos after that will cover the 3 interludes previously mentioned and Part 2, so if you're confused after finishing the next part or simply want a refresher, come back to check out those videos. So what do you think about Part 1 of The Way of Kings? Let me know in the comments, but watch your spoiler tags for the new readers. If you think I left something out, misrepresented anything, or you still have questions about this part of the book, post that in a comment as well. These videos wouldn't be possible without the awesome fan art from the incredible artists of the Cosmere community. Links to each of the artists' accounts can be found in the description. Check them out. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe for future videos. After all, we need to unarchive all these secrets.